So, hey guys, I'm Serge from Travelpayouts. I'm a business development manager, and I hope you can hear me well. And if you hear me well, please send the plus sign in the chat box. You know, it's a tough time, right? Many of us hardly know what to do with our travel resource right now. Should we continue developing them or pause everything and wait for better time? So we've been trying to answer this question, and for this reason, we are hosting the second online webinar today. And the rules of the webinar are quite standard and simple. Whenever you feel like writing something or asking something, please use the chat box in Facebook, and at the very end, we'll pick the most interesting questions and we'll try to answer them. And while we are waiting the others to join, let me briefly remind you of what Travel Payouts is, because I can't miss the opportunity to promote what I'm proud of. So Travel Payouts is a travel affiliate network that helps travel projects to earn money by putting links or widgets on your website. By the way, we've paid more than $23 million. That's quite a lot, and 16 of them were paid in the past 2 years. And then on average, we pay out roughly $694 a year to our publishers. And like the luckiest guy earned $90,000 in a single monthly check last year. That being said, we won't be able to earn anything without our publishers. Kudos to them, and we believe that they are our actually main value. And since the COVID-19 stroke, we've been doing our best to support this community and help our publishers and advertisers to stay afloat. Today, as I've said, we are going to have a panel discussion with three bloggers from the US and Canada. You can see their names on the screen, and we'll find out what they do to overcome the current situation on the travel market. We'll also find out their point of view on how to unlock the potential amidst the crisis. We will learn if they have switched to other niches or keep their companies afloat by other means. We'll know how they deal with the stress. Everyone is stressed now and work in isolation. And hopefully, we'll find out what improvements they might already have seen due to releasing of the lockdowns in some regions. By the way, we've had an alike conversation with bloggers from other countries last week. There were bloggers from UK, India, and Georgia. And last week conversation was super interesting and inspiring. And if you missed it, the video is available on our YouTube channel. And I hope today we'll learn even more because we have quite outstanding lineup today. I know that our today's bloggers are actually the top of the bloggers and they are doing amazing things. And I can't wait to hear their stories. Even though, we'll try to make this event as professional as possible, but the goal of this session is more like a group therapy because, we all belong to the same tight-knit community of travel professionals. And I think we are facing the same challenges as we have been in the same industry. And we will try to help you relieve the stress that you have and give you some food for thought. And before I introduce our first speaker, let me remind you about the webinar rules one more time, because I'm sure that more people came. The rules for today's webinar, again, are standard. Whenever you feel like writing something, or if you want to ask a question, please use the chat box in Facebook. And at the very end of the session, we'll pick the most interesting questions and we'll try to answer them. Also, I would love to say thanks to our media partner affiliate Valley and to the Travel Massive community who have helped us with the promotion of our webinar. Okay, now we can start, I believe. And I would like Alicia Kapoor to begin this session. And Alicia is an industry consultant at SimilarWeb. I'm sure most of you have heard about SimilarWeb, but for those who haven't heard about it, it basically is an online resource that have lots and lots of analytics data on web services, their traffic and everything like that. and she works on the research which are primarily directed on the travel industry. She's based in San Francisco, but right now she's in Connecticut. And I know that Alicia loves to travel very much. I guess that might be the reason why she joined us last week on such short notice and why she's joining us today. Alicia, thanks for agreeing to speak for us again. It's a pleasure to host you, and thanks for preparing amazing data. I'm really looking forward to hearing it because I'm a bit of a data nerd. And let's see how the traffic changed in travel in US and Canada. Alicia, I give you the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sergey, for the introduction. So as Sergey said, my name is Alicia Kapoor. I'm an industry consultant at SimilarWeb, and we track web and app traffic and engagement metrics to give you a holistic view of the digital world. And I've been lucky enough to work with some of our top strategic clients in travel. And I've been able to help them kind of plan out their marketing strategy, which has given me a good view of what's going on behind the scenes during this crisis. So I come bearing kind of some good news, which hopefully all of you guys should be excited about, and just some kind of indicators of where we think the market is going to go in the next few months. So we can start on my first slide. So this is actually a chart that our investors team made, and essentially what it's showing is traffic to the top 100 online travel websites in each country that's listed here, but mapped out relative to the 20 case mark. So it kind of levels the playing field. We're able to see just when countries were hit and kind of what travel traffic has looked like. And what we're starting to see here is that obviously there have been significant decreases. I don't think anyone's surprised about that, but we are seeing bottoming out. And I think that in most countries, we're actually starting to see some upticks, which I'll talk to later in terms of travel traffic and then actual bookings. But I think that this is overall a hopeful picture. Some things to point out. Southeast Asia and Japan were hit a little bit later in terms of their traffic, mostly because they actually implemented restrictions later. But really right now, most major countries and states in the United States are starting to reopen. So like I said, we expect a strong uptick and resurgence in travel traffic. There's been plenty of articles that have kind of come out about how consumers are just itching to start traveling again. And I'm sure you all feel the same. I feel that too. I feel like I spend so much time just kind of fantasizing about where I would love to go next or exploring different places. And I think that we're going to start seeing the industry pick up really quickly, and their big travel players are already making the necessary adjustments to make sure that travel is safe and obviously sanitary for everyone involved. So on my next slide, which we can go to now, I actually wanted to look at the top 100 travel and tourism sites for the specific countries that our panelists are from. And we're seeing that in the US and Canada, we saw a similar month over month decline in traffic. So around 50% on average. And I would say this is pretty middle of the line. So we saw stronger decreases in EMEA and other European and just European countries in general because of the strict lockdowns. Similarly, we did see pretty strong decreases in India because, again, the strict lockdowns. But really, I think that we're seeing kind of a pretty middle line decrease in the US, in Canada. And really, travel and tourism sites capture around 10 times as much traffic as sites in Canada, which is not surprising. The US is huge. And I think that overall, again, it's a promising picture because the North American market is starting to show promise. We're starting to see the US open up. And we're going to see a higher percentage of domestic travel, which I'm sure you guys have all probably read or heard about. But I think that right now, because obviously international borders are locked down, but also I think consumers in general probably feel safer traveling inside their own countries. That's going to be a trend for the next few months. And really, that's, I think, going to be great for the US because the US has traditionally had a majority of in-country travelers, around like 70%, and it went up to around like 80 or 90% in April. So I think that that's something to focus on, is really kind of what can you do to showcase your local area and where you're traveling or able to move around, maybe by car rental or staying in vacation rentals. We've kind of seen an uptick there. So we can talk about that in my next slide. And what's really awesome actually about SimilarWeb data is we're able to get to a really granular level. We're able to segment out lines of business. So this is just traffic to hotel pages in the US. And what we're seeing is, like I said before, vacation rentals are starting to come out on top. So for the first 16 days of May, almost half of the visits to the players in this set went either to Airbnb or VRBO. And VRBO had 525,000 more visits than Google Hotels, whereas Google Hotels kind of was leading the pack earlier when most travel providers cut out paid media spending. So I think that that's a huge debate right now. Will hotels or vacation rentals come back quicker? And I think that my initial hypothesis, and it's early to make any sort of strong assumption, is that vacation rentals are making the right strategic moves by implementing different cleanliness guidelines, by making sure that they have kind of periods in between stays, and they're a little bit more comfortable for consumers in terms of their isolation and just being able to kind of drive to a more isolated locale, maybe spend less money. And I think that we're going to start seeing a large push with vacation rentals for just consumers all over the world, but especially in the US. And I'm curious kind of to hear what the panelists have to say about that, and if they feel like it's a little bit more comfortable to be in vacation rentals than hotels, given the current situation. So then looking at this data at the actual bookings level on the next slide, we can see where people are booking. And this is, I think, some of the most interesting data and exciting data. It's a really hopeful picture. We saw that conversions for accommodations players were 124% higher for the whole set in the first 16 days of May than the first 16 days of April. And again, I think that it's important to be wary about statistics like this. Obviously, 124% sounds like a huge number, but as we all know, the travel industry bottomed out completely in April. So I think that this is more just signs of a smaller resurgence, but it's still a hopeful picture, like I said. Again, Airbnb does own a significant share of converted May accommodations visits, and then actually followed by Hilton and Marriott. So this kind of actually may lend credibility to the other theory that hotels will come back faster because they've kind of had more standard sanitization practices in place. But I think that really what we're seeing here is that Hilton and Marriott have probably kind of just built up such a strong brand loyalty that they're able to have higher quality traffic in general. So even though they're getting less traffic, they're converting more visitors. But that being said, VRBO did have VRBO accommodations conversions were 330% higher during this period than the same period in April. So I think it's a hope picture overall. And I, again, am curious to kind of hear what everyone else thinks and where people feel the safest traveling. So then on our next slide, I wanted to kind of do a deeper dive into probably one of the biggest players on the market, Booking.com. Booking Holdings is the biggest player, really, especially in Europe. But what we're seeing is that Booking.com appears to have formed a new partnership with a discount marketplace in Japan called Bookingcom. And essentially, the marketplace advertises different coupons or deals. And what I believe is happening is that there's referral traffic coming from the site through its travel and tourism pages to Booking.com. And it sent about 124,000 visits in April to Booking.com. to almost no traffic in the 11 months before. And really, we're actually seeing that referral traffic to Booking.com has slowly increased worldwide over the past 28 days. So I think that, again, this is a really good sign and shows kind of which providers have money right now, maybe have money to spend on different sort of marketing tactics, whether that is paid or referral marketing. And I think that it's awesome to be able to see that in the SimilarWeb platform and kind of be able to plot out maybe who, if out of smaller providers, you can pitch yourself to and maybe work with. So that's kind of the end of my slides. I am so excited to hear from the panelists, and thank you guys so much for including me.
Thank you, Alicia, for the speech. Yeah, the greatest thing about your speech is that our publishers can get immediate actionable insights. For example, they can start working with car rental and vacation rental. And that's pretty great that they have data to back their decisions. And thank you for your interesting speech, of course. By the way, before we proceed to the other part, to the actual panel discussion, I would like to add that Travelpayouts created a survival kit for travel bloggers and travel project. And we update it almost weekly and reach with the best techniques on how to make the most of the coronavirus time. And you will see the link in chat box. If you want to get copy, click on it. And I think it's finally the time for me to introduce our lineup for today. We have Rick Kazarian as our event series moderator, and Rick is a travel blogger, author, documentary producer, podcaster, and speaker at Global Gas. Rick is on a quest to travel to all 193 UN countries, and he's sharing with his readers must-see places, unique experiences, and off the beaten path location. And he has already been to over 140 countries. That's great. And please, our viewers, write in the chat to how many countries you have been. Let's compare. And he's been to Afghanistan, Algeria, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Pakistan, and so many others. That's very cool, Rick. And here are our panelists. We've got Dave and Dab from the Planet D. They are founders of the award-winning blog, The Planet D, with over 1 million monthly readers, which is quite a lot. And Dave and Deb have visited over 115 countries on all 7 continents and have worked hard to become the leading source of detailed city guides, personal travel tips, inspiring stories, and so much more. And by the way, Forbes magazine named The Planet D number 6 among the top 10 travel influencers in the world. Also, today we have Brian Tai. He's a co-founder of Budget Your Trip. He's a travel addict, as every one of us, and travel writer, photographer, website developer, and runner. And Brian runs the blog with his wife Lori, and they each have visited more than 50 countries. As they came up with the idea to build a website that showed the data on how much the stuff costs around the world. And Brian calls it Wiki for Travel Costs. And the overall goal of the website is show travelers that traveling is actually accessible, much more accessible than it might seem. Also, we have Jacob Fu, and Jacob Fu is a co-founder of Local Adventurer, a top 5 travel blog in the world. Jacob runs the blog with his wife Esther. They travel full-time with a focus on exploring local gems in their greater backyard, which is great. And they've been named one of the top travel blogs in the US and in the world. And a quick reminder before we start the panel, please ask your questions in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. Okay, now I'm ready to give the floor to Rick Kazarian. Rick, thank you for joining us today and for preparing all the questions. Let's go.
Thank you, Sergey. Hey now, everybody. My name is Rick Kazarian. I'm a blogger at Global Gaz, a podcaster at Counting Countries. I'm also the Asia coordinator at Travel Massive. But for today, I'll be your moderator for this awesome panel. I am excited about my 4 guests. They are all content creators in the travel industry, and they'll be introducing themselves in one moment. But just one more reminder, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free, jump into the chat box, ask any questions that you might have, and we will try and get to them. At this time, I'm going to start off with Deb and Dave from the Planet D. We can call them the OGs of the travel blogging industry. So I'm hoping you can say hi and introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Yes, we started our blog in 2008. So we really are one of the old timers. And that was a really great way to start the blog that early because it was all new. We got the world was at our feet, and we just wanted to share our love for travel that we had been doing for the past 10 years before that. And we've been able to grow all of this time. Like the whole intro has been done for us. So, we've been to 115 countries on all 7 continents, and we focus on adventure travel. So we have a great time. We're still excited about travel, and we can't wait to get out there again.
Hopefully the sooner, the better. I'd like to bring in I'd like to bring in Brian, who has a real successful approach to blogging from a budgeting and financial perspective. Please, Brian, say hi, introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. I'm Brian Ty, and together with my wife, Lori, we started Budget Your Trip about 10 years ago. We got the idea while we were traveling around the world, and we were trying to figure out how much stuff costs because we wanted to save as much money as possible. And we talked to a lot of other people about how much they were spending on their trip. And we got the idea that like all this data needs to be online for everyone. And that's essentially what gave birth to the website. And over the years, it's evolved and grown, and it's really surprised us how much it's grown. But we're super excited to be in the position we're in now, where like we can provide all this information for people so that we can make travel like a reality for so many people by showing them that it really can be affordable and accessible. And there's lots of great places around the world to visit. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And a quick hello to Susan, who just chimed in the chat box. Jacob, excited to have you on as well. And you have a real interesting approach to travel. I understand you move to a new city each and every year with your wife. So please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Jacob. Along with my wife, we run Local Adventure. And for the past 6 years, we've been moving to a new city every year, basing ourselves there to explore the area. And right now we're really focused. I mean, we've been focused on traveling within the US and just encouraging people to explore our greater backyard.
Okay. Thanks, Jacob. And a quick hello to Olga, who also chimed in. Remember to share your questions. Deb and Dave, I believe you're in Canada. I don't know where exactly. Yeah. But if
I was going to say hi, Susan. We're in Canada as well. We're in just outside of Toronto right now. So
okay.
Now we're outside of Toronto.
Excellent. And I'm hoping you can give a brief overview. What's happening in Canada in regard to the COVID situation? What's open, what's not?
Well, actually, this weekend was Victoria Day weekend, and we just started reopening here in Ontario in phase 1. So basically, it's not a lot of things are open, like curbside pickup and a few hardware stores are. You're at like Home Depot, you're able to go in, but restaurants,
bars,
hairstyles, they're all still closed. So yeah, they're trying to. We're opening up very slowly. I know that provincial parks are open. As well as golf courses, so people can still get out as long as they're practicing their physical distancing. But we're going pretty slow here, which is good, and we'll see what kind of reaction happens after phase 1.
I'm not sure what your secret is, but both of your hair looks excellent, so you can share that later. And Jacob,
it's hibernation hair, right?
Yeah.
And Jacob, you're in Vegas. What's going on there? I mean, I think we all know that's one of the liveliest cities in the world on the Strip, but what's going on in Vegas?
Yeah, it's overall, it's still quiet here. We're about 60 days in to still staying in. Most businesses are still closed. They're starting again, like Dave mentioned, a phase 1 here as well, where some restaurants are opening and some services, but for the most part, everything else is it's slowly reopening. So we're going to see, and the governor's keeping an eye on kind of the count as we get through this phase 1.
And Brian, can you give us an update in North Carolina?
Sure. Yeah. Here, we've been in phase 1 now for about a week and a half, which means that retail stores are open, but restaurants are not open. But this coming weekend, if the trend continues they will start phase 2, which means restaurants can open with limited capacity, and a few other places can also open with limited capacity for more like longer term seating kind of situations. But yeah, parks are open, and I think this weekend they're saying playgrounds could be open, so maybe the kids could get out and play in the playground. So that's kind of a big step. And they also announced yesterday here that they're planning to open schools in August. So that's kind of like a big deal for people to kind of start planning their life, you know?
Excellent. And I am in Bangkok right now, and things have really opened up here the last couple of weeks. Restaurants are open, shopping malls are open. We still have a curfew. You have to be home at 11 p.m. at night. And no foreigners are allowed to enter the country at this time. Hopefully that will change in July. To say the least, this has been an unbelievably challenging and traumatic time for all of us in the travel industry. Deb and Dave, what's happened to your business since the arrival of COVID? If you want to give examples of web traffic or ad sales or partnerships, what's happened?
Yeah, we no longer have those million views a month. I'll tell you that. So.
Yeah, we've lost about I would say 60 to 70% of our traffic. That happened probably within less than a week. Like there was a really big cliff dive, like it really went off a cliff, and it sort of stayed that way. We see now that it's starting to come back very, very slowly. We weren't overly happy with Google doing an update in the middle of COVID-19 either. Doing that definitely doesn't help the situation. But as far as partnerships go, our partnerships have all stayed the same. We didn't really have anything on the go for travel partnerships later on in the year, but we had some other yearly partnerships that we were working on that have just been put on hold. So I think that's sort of a common theme that's happening right now is a lot of destinations and brands are putting things on hold because they just don't really know where the budgets are going to go or how maybe to even approach the situation using a travel influencer. Yeah.
And for us, a lot of our business as well is affiliates and advertising, and advertisers have definitely slashed budget. And it was interesting to hear that Booking is on an upswing because they are one of the partners, unlike TripAdvisor and Airbnb, that didn't slash their commissions for us. Like other people, we would get an email every couple of weeks saying, okay, we've dropped commissions, we dropped them again. So Booking was the one that has stuck by everybody. So maybe they are onto something that they know that the rest don't.
Okay, well, maybe they're benefiting from their partnerships that they've made with affiliates. Brian, what's going on with you? What happened to your business once COVID rolled in?
Yeah, I think like Dave and Deb said, similar things here with traffic. Over a period of maybe 3 weeks, we saw a plummet of approximately 70% in traffic, and revenue also down in a major way. Most of our revenue comes from affiliates and advertising, and affiliates just kind of bottomed out to almost nothing because nobody's booking anything because nobody really wants to make plans, right? Or they can't make plans because they can't leave. And advertising, of course, advertising rates have been slashed. So I think our advertising revenue is down like 90% or something like that. So while our traffic went down like, 2/3 to 3/4, it's slowly kind of coming back. I think more people are maybe getting itchy to get somewhere. So now we're down probably around 50% of where we were back in January. So it's good to see it kind of slowly coming back. We're also seeing advertising revenue come back just a little bit. So it's kind of good to see that. I think advertisers are starting to realize that as things are starting to open up, they're putting a little bit more money in. It's nothing like what it was before, but it's kind of like a good sign, right? I hope, anyway.
Better than the other way around.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we stand. Like things are obviously down, but we're hopeful. We're hoping that things will come back soon.
So, Brian, curious, you mentioned you had a bit of a bounce back from your real lows. Are you seeing any conversions, any hotel sales?
Very few, maybe a couple a week. So it's kind of hard to say like why those people are booking. I know that those bookings are for like further out, for months out. I think people have an idea, well, it looks like the European countries are opening, so maybe we'll go ahead and plan something, that kind of thing. So that's good. Hopefully that trend will continue and we'll see more and more as people kind of enter this different phases, phase 1, phase 2, or what have you in different places.
Great. Thanks for that overview, Brian. And I'd like to talk to Jacob for a moment. And In addition, Jacob, I'm hoping you can give an overview. What's happened to your business since COVID did arrive?
Yeah, I think just to kind of echo what they've said, similar in terms of traffic, we dropped probably 60, 70%. This past week, I would say we're just starting to see that uptick back to about 50%. And that, obviously affects ad rev. For us, we did a lot of our income was through sponsorships, which a lot of that's been put on hold. We haven't really had anything cut out, but just put on hold. So we'll kind of have to see as we come out of this, if it does bounce back or if things change. But we're hopeful. I think we're just crossing our fingers that it'll come back sooner rather than later. But we know, eventually people will be traveling again.
Okay, that is the silver lining. We have to have hope. Thank you, Jacob. So this is a real challenging time, but in crisis, there's opportunity. I'm speaking to a lot of travel content creators and other people in the travel industry who are using this time to reinvest back in their business. So Brian, I want to learn about what you're doing. So Brian, are you using this time to overview your website? Are you looking at SEO? Are you doing link building? Are you going back down that very long to-do list, which piles up month after month, where you now might have some time to do some of the blocking and tackling on the website?
Yeah, definitely. SEO has always been our primary source of traffic. And so we're not changing that at all, because we sort of see that as SEO is always like a long-term strategy for anyone, and we see this getting through this crisis as a long-term problem. Hopefully in the short term, it will get better, but I don't think the long-term effects of SEO are really going to change in the long run for us. So SEO is something we've always done, and it's something we're going to keep doing right now. But like you said, we're kind of restructuring some of the content, and we had an overall content strategy that we were going for over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And it was going to involve dealing with a lot of individual businesses, and we're not sure if some of those businesses are going to be around. So instead of sort of risking the time and the money to make that content, instead we're switching our focus to make hopefully what is currently a risky situation less risky by focusing more content on local travel and the kind of content that will hopefully resonate with an audience when things do start to come back. So when the world does open up again, what are people going to be doing first and foremost? What kind of information are they going to need? And that's the kind of content that we're focusing on for the most part right now. So I think a lot of people are sort of switching their focus maybe away from travel a little bit, but we're not. We're essentially doubling down on doubling down on travel, I should say. We're not switching to lifestyle and things like that, partly because our website is not so much personal about us and what we're doing as a family, but more about overall data and information about different places. So as a large site that is essentially a travel guide for people, we're going to provide more travel information that will hopefully be relevant to them, instead of switching over to something about things to do or what our family is doing while we're all at home. So in a sense, we're sort of sacrificing the short term for the long term. The long term being travel will one day come back, and that's what we're planning for.
Okay, so sounds like you're investing for the long term.
Yeah.
And you're going to stick to your knitting, and that's your strategy. Excellent. I'd like to hear from Dave and Dev. And guys, does SEO come into play for you? Is this an important pillar of your travel blogging, or link building? Are these two things that you're revisiting, spending a bit more time on today?
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, travel and working with clients and destinations has always been a very big part of our business. But we've found that the time that we're taking, or time that we have now that's been freed up because of COVID, we're using that to actually go back and really focus on SEO and updating content. We've been going since 2008. So, we always do content audits every year, but we sort of stepped that up during this time, and that we can look at things that, okay, maybe, we can go in here and we can improve this content and refresh it for, like they were saying, when travel does come back, SEO, is a long-term strategy, and that's the way we're looking at it. So we're, that's part of what we're doing, because, we can't really be focusing on destinations right now.
Yeah, and just similar to Brian, we're not really pivoting at all. We've worked on building our expertise in brand for the past 10 years, and it would be a little bit silly of us to start saying, well, now we are experts in home renovations. So I know that for me, before I traveled full time, I was always dreaming of travel. And there were times when I couldn't travel for 2 to 3 years at a time, but I was still planning where I want to go. And it's in our blood that people want to dream about travel. So they're still going to look for places to go. And that's kind of what we've been focusing on, besides the refreshes of old content. When I write new content, I'm doing that more dreaming phase again, like the beautiful cities and the wonderful beaches, and just getting people dreaming and excited again about travel.
And the content strategy itself is really, we're looking at things that people will be doing around their area. So road trips and stuff like that, stuff that you can drive to, all that kind of stuff, and
camping.
And camping, all those things that people will be doing in the short term that still have long-term benefit for our readers.
And Deb, not to put you on the spot, what location have you been dreaming about the most?
Oh, Rwanda. I have been saying for years that I want to go to visit the gorillas, and we have yet to. We've had a couple opportunities when we've been busy on other travels, and now we're saying, you know what, we got to do it. You got to take life by the reins and go to Rwanda. So
Definitely.
That's top of our list to go and trek with the gorillas.
Okay, so first trip outside of lockdown. And Deb and Dave, I'm curious. I mean, I'm guessing you have either hundreds or thousands of posts on your blog. And when you're doing some of this blocking and tackling, when SEO or link building, is this done all in-house? Is this the two of you? Do you work with the virtual assistant? Do you have any strategy? How do you do it granularly?
Yeah, so we've recently hired on a consultant to help us do all of this, because obviously, it is the two of us. We take on a lot of work ourselves, and we can now because we do have the time. But obviously, having someone else there and having an outside eye looking at the content as well really helps us, because every piece of content on there is personal to us. It's about destinations we've been to and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's hard to get an outside eye in the way you should maybe improve the content or update the content. So by bringing in someone else to help us, it's really helped us have a different perspective on things.
Yeah, and we've been paring down a lot of content, actually, because we've written so many articles since 2008 that are completely outdated, that completely hinders us through Google's eyes. So this has been something where we're going back through content going, do we trash it? Do we update it? Or do we just redirect it? So that's been the real technical side has been kind of fun and interesting for us during this time, to just see our website, because it's evolved so much. It's quite old, it's 12 years old. So
awesome. And one of our guests one of the guests listening on, Viral Kachari, Dave and Deb, they've invited you to Ethiopia. So
fantastic.
I might have to add that on after Rwanda.
Yeah, we haven't been to Ethiopia since 2008, so we definitely need to go back.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, guys. And I'd like to talk to Jacob for a minute. And I know you're a travel blogger, but also you dabble in lifestyle a little bit. So share with me how you are, let's say, expanding your content a little bit during this time period to, keep traffic up and attract your readers during COVID.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we don't do as much lifestyle or did as much lifestyle in the past couple of years, but early on, we definitely had dabbled with it. And during the dropout on our site, we saw a lot of those older posts come to the forefront as being what was, most popular on our site at the time. So we took the time at the beginning, first couple of weeks to refresh that content and build a couple more pieces similar that were still travel inspired. For example, Esther's been puzzling a ton during this quarantine time. And so we put together a post of, the best travel inspired puzzles. And then as it continued on, we kind of took the route that's similar to Brian and Dave and Deb, is to go back and look at the content that was older, that needed refreshing. And we've just been hunkering down, especially the past two and a half weeks, and just making sure that old content is good and updated, and that once people are starting to look for it again, that it'll be fresh. And also just making sure that Google knows that it's fresh as well, that it's new updated content, not content from 3-4 years ago.
So, Jacob, is there a tip when you're doing that? So in other words, you said you want Google to know it's been updated. So is there one or two or three things that you need to do to the post which will get the recognition from Google?
I think from what we're doing, we're simply making sure that it's updated, making sure we're up standard. The SEO standards are more up to date than what they were, 3-4 years ago. We're making sure that we're putting a date on there showing that it was last updated when, on whatever, if it's May 18th, 2020, as opposed to whatever date that it's Google's indexing. So those have been kind of what we've been doing for the most part.
And are you using any tools for SEO?
We primarily use key search as our to help us figure out future content as well as where our current content stands, and then using that to update what keywords we're trying to hit on, and all the different SEO words that we want to make sure to focus on.
And you shared this with me offline. Your wife Esther is a puzzle master. How big is that puzzle she's working on?
So early on, probably about a week and a half in, we ended up getting her an 18,000 piece puzzle. And she's currently on the puzzle is broken up into 4 quarters, and she's on the last quarter of it. But by the end, the puzzle is going to be about 9 feet by 6 feet large. Big. It's a big puzzle.
That's a big project. And Jacob, my understanding, you're moving to a different city each year. A fair amount of your content is focused on that city. So we've heard Deb and Dave talk about local road trips. We've heard about this whole concept of there's not going to be a lot of international travel. People are going to be focusing domestically. That seems to play right into your hand with these, in essence, local guides. Can you touch on that for a moment and how you might be benefiting from that?
Yeah, and we don't know that we will benefit from it, but we're definitely crossing our fingers that we will. Most of our content is US-based, local content about road trips, about the national parks, city guides. So we're really focusing on making sure that content is good and fresh. Like most people have mentioned, local travel is going to be the first thing that comes back. We've talked to a lot of the destinations here locally, and as they're behind the scenes of their marketing and the different phases that they're going to be reintroducing travel within their state. A lot of them are focused within first within the state or within the city, then within the state, and then the neighboring states. So we're just really trying to partner with them to make sure that our content is up to date and something that we can promote. We want to promote travel responsibly because we don't know what this is going to look like. As things open up, we could shut down again. But we just want to make sure that people are being responsible as they travel. So starting out locally first.
Sounds good. And make sure you have a puzzle in reserve. Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from Deb and Dave one more time. And Deb and Dave, we have a question. I'm going to direct it to you. It's from Olga. And out of curiosity, traffic has gone down dramatically. But is there any of your posts which have seen an uptick? What category?
Yeah, post? Yeah. Definitely the dreaming posts. And we've always written about, we used to work in the film industry. We've always written about movies and TV shows and music. Those posts have suddenly taken over. We've had like the best travel movies to inspire wanderlust and travel books to inspire. So it's been those inspirational posts. I was really surprised to see road trip songs and travel songs starting to do well. And our beautiful cities
Yeah.
These are posts that we've had for years that we have refreshed and updated, and they've really taken off. So while other things are dropping, other ones are coming up.
I've also seen in the past week an actual uptick in European city guides. So they're starting. I mean, a small uptick, but I think it's a good correlation between Spain and Italy and them starting to reopen. That people are starting to get a little bit interested again in what they can do. I wouldn't necessarily say that the conversions for hotels or tours or anything from those have increased, but the traffic is starting to move a little bit more towards there, which is really encouraging.
Something I wanted to add too is a lot of people are saying focus on local. For us, we're an international travel blog. It doesn't necessarily need to be local. We still rank, like Dave was saying, in European cities, and we still rank for places in Africa. So, and Asia. I don't think that people need to get micro-focused. That, like, of course, it works amazingly well for Jacob and Esther because they are local adventurers. But when people are thinking, I have to just think about my own backyard, you can still rank in Google if you have good content, because people going to Paris from Paris will still want to know some things about Paris. So just a little tip there. Yeah.
Okay. And Deb and Dave, you mentioned film industry.
Yeah.
Should I be recognizing you from any films?
Well, we were behind the scenes, so I was a gaffer, like the head of the lighting department, and Deb was a makeup artist. So
yeah,
maybe if you see some credits.
I did hair and makeup, so I've been cutting Dave's hair during the virus.
Yeah, you commented on the hair. You see, that's where it's from.
Now I know your secret. So Deb and Dave, we've touched on affiliates before, and obviously, just as traffic has gone down, significantly, affiliate sales have gone down just as much. So I think a fair amount of your business is driven by affiliates. Take us back to January, and maybe for an example, give us your 3 top affiliate drivers. Who have you partnered with that's been driving your business and your affiliates?
Yeah, so for affiliates, the majority of our income on that side of things is coming from accommodation. So we Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and just very recently we got on with a partnership with Airbnb, and that was starting to take off before this all came. So those 3 programs have really generated, probably I would say, as far as affiliate income, probably 80% of our affiliate income comes from those booking sites. So, and
for tours, we did a Get Your Guide and the City Pass. Those were really big drivers for tours for us. And
for money, yeah. So as like if people aren't booking hotels, obviously our affiliate income took a massive hit on that side of things. So
okay. Well, I want to look out into the future when we have sunnier days. You guys are veterans of this industry of working with affiliates. I don't know, is there 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you can share with a more novice or intermediate travel blogger? What's the best way to work with affiliates to get them working for you as much as possible?
Well, I think you really want to focus on a post that will give information specific that people are looking for. I've seen people that have much smaller numbers than us do great on one article that they've really micro-focused on giving all the details that they need. So say you are someone from Ottawa, Ontario. I know somebody's in Ottawa on here. So focus on writing all of the information that answers a question to those people, and then link to those affiliates that will drive them to the hotel that you recommend, to the tour that you recommend. So you want to give, everything that I ever think about is you want to answer a question for people. When you're writing an article, people are coming to the internet to answer a question. So if they're planning a trip, give them all the tools they need so that they don't have to leave your website and they can book from there.
Okay, and my other thing is don't give people too much choice. So unless you are getting a lot of traffic, I would say focus on one and try and build a relationship with that first, and then you can add other affiliates in as you go. Because if you're trying to satisfy too many people, then you're probably get less bookings. Look at where your traffic is coming from, and ask your readers what they use to book. We have a lot of North American traffic. TripAdvisor is a big thing that people use. So that's our main affiliate, whereas in Europe, maybe Booking is probably a much better way to go.
Okay. So the advice is create a simple solution with limited choice and keep them on the website. Dave, I don't want you getting a big head. but Viral Kathari loves your hairstyle. So,
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to take that
you.
one because I did the cut.
We'll be doing a Zoom about Deb doing it later
I
on.
think that's what we need to do that next time.
that could be a brand extension. We'll have to think about it. Okay, thank
Cutting
you,
your hair.
Deb. And let's bring in Brian for a moment. And Brian, my understanding is you did a fair amount of affiliate sales as well. So talk to me, what percentage of your revenue is basically affiliate sales, and what type of affiliate sales?
It's a good question. It's a tough question to answer because right around December and January, we basically had some new opportunities with some new advertisers, and we were looking at making a lot more money from advertising than from affiliates for this year if things had panned out nicely. But last year, yeah, I think probably around 2/3, 70% or so is probably a good number of what our percentage of revenue from affiliates was. The vast majority was accommodation and tours, like Dave and Deb mentioned, Get Your Guide. There's a number of great sites out there, kind of like Get Your Guide, like Viator and Klook and things like that. We had partnered with both Viator and Get Your Guide for that kind of activities. The short-term tours, I think, are really popular these days. But then advertising as well. So I think looking at affiliates, like I want to reiterate too, the advice that Deb and Dave gave. SEO is about answering someone's question, and SEO is a great way to drive traffic to an affiliate post. And like they were saying, keep it simple, like you reiterated too, keeping it simple, but also kind of like answering someone's question in detail. That's really the secret of affiliate marketing that I think a lot of people are starting to figure out. Answering someone's question, getting really specific, getting really like targeted to some keywords. That's kind of the advice that I would give to any blogger looking for any kind of affiliate marketing, no matter whether they're in travel or something else.
So Brian, can you give a real life example? So again, something to look forward to in the future when traffic returns, but looking at your blog, what's one of your more successful posts with a really high conversion rate? Why is it working? What's the magic, the secret sauce?
I think the secret sauce is doing a lot of SEO work to get the post ranked highly on a Google search for a very popular but specific term. And we have a lot of posts like that. So to give one example, I don't want to give away my secrets because I don't want somebody to replicate it. But, let's look at something like hotels near the Eiffel Tower. Okay. You can see how that's really specific, but let's talk about too, like getting even more specific, hotels near the Eiffel Tower with a swimming pool, or hotels or apartments near the Eiffel Tower with a kitchen, things like that. People do actually search for that kind of stuff. And it's not the high volume that you would expect for like hotels in Paris, of course, because hotels in Paris is going to have a massive amount of search traffic. But at the same time, there's no way anybody's going to be able to compete for that because it's all dominated by Expedia and TripAdvisor and stuff like that. So if you want to compete, you have to get really specific. But also getting really specific means that the people who are searching for that thing, they know what they want. And if you can answer their question and give them the answer to the question they want, like, yeah, here's the best apartment near the Eiffel Tower with a kitchen, and then link to something like Airbnb or VRBO or what have you. As we said earlier, it looks like apartments are booming because people want that safe space to stay in, right? Then that's sort of like a recipe right there for an affiliate marketing post, and then using all the SEO tools and know-how that you have to try to get it on the first page, hopefully in the top 5, right? Then that's sort of the recipe. That's what I would suggest to anybody who's looking into SEO at least.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Jacob, I'd like to hear from you, and I'm going to go to the audience for a question. Unfortunately, I cannot give the questioner any credit because the name is in Cyrillic. That is out of my scope. But his question is a trend or a things to come in the future, Zoom tours or Zoom experiences. So I've seen a number of tour providers, for instance, in Thailand, starting to roll out Zoom experiences or tours. I'm seeing bloggers doing cooking up in the kitchen. I don't know if you have 2 cents you want to share with us, what you think about this as a potential in the short term, And then I guess, is the environment changing so much that this might be a long-term alternative as well, even when travel does pick up?
My opinion, I would say that it's probably more of a short-term thing. I think people who are doing it well and doing it right is beneficial. It keeps them on the forefront. A good example of this is, we have a post about the best escape rooms in a city, and one of the companies that we work closely with, they put together a Zoom experience for one of their escape rooms, and they did it spectacularly. I think we had expectations that it would be a horrible experience, but they did a really great job with it, which just keeps their business afloat in the meantime before they can open up. But also, it keeps people engaged during this time rather than forgetting about them as a whole. So I think short-term wise, it's a good solution. I'm hoping that it's not something we'll have to rely on in the future. But again, it's because we don't know when. There's no end in sight, really. It's not a bad idea to develop these tools just because you don't know if something like this will happen again in the future, and it'll help you be prepared for that as well. But I would say, yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that it's short term.
And Jacob, curious minds do want to know, for that Zoom escape video, were they able to get out?
Oops.
Can you hear me?
No, I think I froze for a second. Were they able to get a what?
But I was just curious, for that Zoom video in the escape room, were they eventually able to get
out? So we did. We got out. And the way they did it was interesting because they basically had a guy in there with the camera they were your hands and feet. And you could kind of direct them around in the room, and they had an online inventory of all your clues and everything. So it was a really good experience. And yes, we got out with like 2 minutes left.
Well done. So Jacob, there's so many different ways to monetize your blogs. Obviously, some of the big ones are affiliates, some are advertisements, some are brand partnerships. My understanding is you do a lot of work with brands and working on partnerships with them. Give us a quick idea of how you're working with brands before COVID.
Yeah, our income broke down to be about 60% through brand partnerships, 30% through ads, and only about 10% through affiliates. And so we worked with a lot of brands, kind of a whole gamut of brands, but a lot of the income from brands came from things you wouldn't necessarily relate to travel immediately. And I guess, when we worked with the brands, we tried to make that connection. So an example of that is we worked with Kleenex. They had wet wipes that they were launching, and we worked with them for a couple of years to just to show them how we use it day to day and how we use it during traveling. Now it'd be very useful, now that wipes are in such high demand. But we look for brand partnerships like that where they're kind of travel adjacent, and we can really integrate that into our content.
Okay, and Jacob, I want to know your thoughts about working with brands today in COVID. So what's your thoughts? What's your advice? Is this a time to be pitching new brands? Is it a time to be reaching out to your brands that you're working with currently and coming up with different strategies in this time to stay safe, stay home?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I look at it a few different ways. For brands that you have a relationship with already or done projects in the past, I think it's a good time to touch base. I think it's a good time to just support them when everybody's kind of hurting, especially brands you want to continue the relationship with and work with in the future. I think reaching out to brands it's tough right now. Everybody is tight on money. Most marketing budgets have been slashed right now, at least, or they're on hold. But there are other brands that are thriving, brands that came up during this time that are doing really well. And so I think there is opportunity to reach out right now. I think you just have to be, you have to read the room well. You have to figure out how they're doing. You have to see what I do a lot of research beforehand to see what they're currently doing. Are they doing any sponsored content? Are they have they done well during this quarantine time, or are they hurting more so? But I think it's also a good time to hone your skills. I think a lot of people who come into travel blog, the work don't necessarily have a background in sales or account managing, and it's a good time to kind of figure out, get those skills honed and make sure you're working on that, because that's just part of the business as you run a small business.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on that. Jacob, can you share with us 1 or 2 pieces of advice when you're pitching a new brand?
Yeah, I would say do your research. Know what they're doing. It always helps to know what they're doing. When I pitch, I try to keep things short and simple. When my emails that I reach out to them with are very straightforward. I'm not trying to beat around the bush. I tell them, who we are, what we offer, what we're trying to do. And then I try to gather as much information from them as possible. If you can get them on the phone, get them talking, find out what their goals are, what they've had, what their experience has been working with bloggers or influencers. A lot of people have been burned. Do good business with them and be responsive, and you'd be surprised how excited they'd be to work with you. I think one of the most common feedback that still blows my mind is people are like, "Wow, you responded to my email within 24 hours." And it's just the industry, it's big, it's saturated now, so there's a lot of people here, but just if you do good business and respond well, then brands will come back to you again.
Okay, thanks, Jacob. And I'd like to go back to Deb and Dave. And Deb and Dave, I do want to talk to you about brands and partnerships in a moment, but I'm going to go to the audience. So we have a question from Alex. So Alex right now is creating a second travel blog, which is focused on their home city. It's historic, off the beaten path in the UK. And they're hoping when domestic travel picks up, they're going to hope traffic picks up. So they're looking to you. Do you have any advice for someone starting a niche destination blog? Best income streams or growth strategies? So put on your free consulting hats. Free to give some info to Alex.
Well, I would say I always look at it from the standpoint as if I was starting a blog today. What would I do to try and grow traffic? And there's a lot of different tools out there that you can use. But first of all, having a plan and building up content first, almost even before you launch, is almost necessary. And the first thing that I would be looking at is building some links to some of your cornerstone content, getting out there and guest blogging, and actually getting in contact with different partners within that city, and see how you guys can pair up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a monetary relationship at this point, but I think that goes a long way into showing your expertise into that particular city, by partnering with different businesses in there. And I think now the time is a great time to do it, because everybody's looking for different exposures. So basically creating a guest blogging kind of network between all the people in that area, or businesses in that area, can really be hugely beneficial in starting to grow traffic, especially from an SEO perspective for a new blog.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate on that is build your network. Reach out to your fellow bloggers that are in your own level, and start asking them to support you and share your content. Let them letting them guest post on. They're letting you guest post on their site. And like Dave said, reach out to local businesses and have them link back to you and start building that. Really, you want to build that network. That's what Google's built on. You can't do it alone. You just can't start a blog and start writing content and think that people will read it just because it's good. You have to start building a network and links.
Yep. Great. And Dave and Deb, I know you work with a lot of brands. You have a lot of different partnerships, and everybody has just been flustered and flabbergasted during the last couple of months. And that doesn't matter if you're a content creator. It doesn't matter if you're a hotel and the airline. So curious, are you in essence reaching out to the brands that you've partnered with and offering them a shoulder for support? Are you crafting messages in conjunction with them that is different from 2 months ago? Back to the whole concept of, stay home today, stay safe, but in the future, we're going to be here. So are any of the brands you're working with, I guess, being proactive during this time?
Yeah, we've actually had a lot of brands and destinations reach out for when travel is over, when the travel ban is over and when it starts again, like starting to discuss already about having us to start promoting. But, we've also had a lot of places that have been very proactive, like Germany Tourism. They had us launch a virtual tour where we just talked about our road trip through Bavaria. And that went over really well and got people excited about Bavaria. We've had companies reach out to us to start promoting their destination, helping them promote. We still have contracts that we personally put on hold. We weren't holding people to it. And we were like, let's just discuss it once COVID is over. Because I don't think if we can offer value, why would we force a company to keep working with us when no one's coming to the blog? So I really liked what Jacob said, support the people you've been working with. And when people reach out and say, can you help us promote this live event or this virtual tour? We're on it if we've worked with them and we have a good relationship with them.
And I think in the end, it forces everybody, both brands and content creators, to be more creative. So, in a space like this where people aren't traveling, it forces you to be more creative and coming up with different ideas on how you're going to promote a destination. Air travel is probably going to be way different than it was, beforehand, for sure. So maybe if you're working with an airline, how are you going to approach it with your audience and what kind of messaging are they looking at? Because it's going to be different. You're not going to be able to basically go back to the same messaging as before when COVID-19 wasn't here. So by getting in contact with the brands and talking to them about what their strategies are for the future, you can use that to help shape the content that you're putting out for your readers as well. So you're on top of the most current things that are happening.
We always say when it comes to working with brands, it's about building the relationship first. Just to add on something that Jacob said about knowing what you want, we would always reach out to them and build a relationship online first. We'd tweet them and retweet and joke around and talk on Facebook. And then it'd start being, they'd know who we are. We never really ever cold called or cold emailed anybody. They had a good idea who we were. So that's one of our biggest tips.
Okay. And I mean, the other takeaway I heard from you guys is it's a partnership and you're in it for the long term. So someone more transactional would go, hey, where's my check? You owe me my check. And you guys are obviously looking out into the future. You realize everybody's hurting and you're going to be here next month, next year, and 5 years from now. And you want to have the ability to partner with that brand.
Definitely.
We're all in the same boat. We're all hurting. And so it's not going to do you any good to just start demanding things, even though we want to.
Yeah.
No.
Even though we'd like those checks. Okay, I want to take one more question from the audience for Deb and Dave. Olga. And Olga's asking, have you noticed any changes in the way that your audience is communicating with you? Is it more social media? Is it more comments on the blog? Is it more emails? Any differences or same old, same old?
Yeah, definitely people have been paying a lot more attention and commenting a lot more. We've really taken this time to really focus on our email list because when it's I always say the first thing you should be doing is build an email list, because especially in times like this, it's a great lesson in that when you can't depend on social traffic or Google, you can rely on those readers that you've built super fans out of on your email list. So we're constantly, every email that we send out every week, we're always getting responses back. There's a dialogue happening. There's more dialogue happening on social media. And I think that, people are, because they have a little bit more time, they're able to respond to you. And you know what? That builds up that relationship with you and your readers. We can spend a lot more time answering questions and getting into more detail with these people. And what's great is that these people will be super fans, for later on down the road. So by having this time to actually sit down and respond to every single email, it builds a huge, valuable relationship.
Yeah, our email list has actually helped keep our traffic afloat more as well. Like when we send out our email to our subscribers, people are reading it and they're reading through and clicking through. So having that email list has really helped us, and having the time to focus on it has helped a lot.
And what is your strategy there? Is it a monthly newsletter, quarterly, whenever you get around to it? And
it used to be that.
It used to be whenever we get around to it, but we revamped that, and because we wanted to spend more time and more focus on it. So like for us, we send out 2 emails a week, and it's a strategy that has really, I mean, it takes, when you're only putting it out once a month, you're obviously going to lose people if you start increasing your frequency. But the majority of those people probably weren't clicking anyway. So we do a purge. I purge my emails every 2 months, in that the people that aren't clicking through or not participating, then they get a chance to opt into the list one more time. And if they don't, then I take them off the list. So I'm very stringent on just having people who actually are engaged and want the emails. So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's the same way as we used to say about blogging, putting a post up. We still say that. Be consistent. Now the email, as we focus more on email lists, we be more consistent, because when people get that in their inbox every week, they know it's coming. They're not going, what is this? Why are you emailing me? So we've worked on consistency.
And one more quick question. What do you advise or suggest? Are you a MailChimp family, or what do you guys use?
We're a ConvertKit family. We have had MailChimp, Aweber, we've gone through them all. But ConvertKit for us works really well in being able to segment on audiences and go a little bit, if you're a little bit more advanced, or go a little bit more deeper in segmenting your audiences and different sequence series and stuff like that. It's really great in being able to target your audience.
Okay. And I think the one lesson I heard from you, Dave, and I've heard it from many, many other content creators. So your followers and fans on Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram, you don't own that. You don't own the searches on Google, but you can own those emails. So that is a really important part that you should be focusing on. Thanks, guys, for those insights. I'm going to bring back Jacob. And Jacob, I know you have a pretty big presence on social media. And my question is now the time to be showing off those awesome selfies in a dream destination? Are people allowed to dream, or is it more like, well, we can't think about that right now, we got to change our whole Instagram or Facebook strategy? What are you guys doing? Okay, Jacob, I think you might have gone.
There you go. Okay. I've heard both, and I think it's been kind of an ongoing discussion throughout this entire period, to where some people don't want to look at travel photos at all, but I err on the side, and I've heard a lot of response from our engagement and everything, is that people still do want to see the travel photos. They do want to. They want to dream, as Deb says. We all still want to dream about those destinations that we'll be able to go to afterwards. I think the way we've handled it, at least, is to still mix in the realism of what we're facing. Right? It's not to be put on only a happy face and only talk about, hey, can you imagine this awesome spot to take photos at? But to talk about the reality of what we're facing, of like, okay, this is what we're hoping to revisit again in the future. In the meantime, like we're having a hard time staying home or staying in place. How are you guys dealing with it? So engaging our audience that way, to be honest with what we're dealing with here, while still inspiring them through the beautiful photos.
Okay, and Jacob, we have a question from Olga, and she is asking you, what's your favorite social media platform? And I'll add in why.
That's a great question. I think we're because we're so photo based and very visual people. Instagram is probably going to be our favorite social media platform to share on, and to. I do really goofy stuff on my stories, and that's just kind of my personality. I like to be creative with that. So yeah, I would say for me, it'd be Instagram for sure.
Okay, and one more follow-up question. Give us one piece of advice for growing your followers on IG.
That's a great question. It changes so much day to day and year over year. I think for right now, I don't focus on a growth strategy per se, but more so just to be transparent and honest with my audience. And I feel like that plays well into, people know when you're fake on these accounts. So I think that doing that has helped. And then also just engaging with other people, I think similar to blogging, as people that are within your size and within your scope, and collaborating with them and just kind of getting some cross-pollination of the audience.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Jacob. I'd like to speak with Brian for a moment. Brian, I've been using this downtime to work on a pet project that I had on the shelf 3.5 years ago. I finally got around to starting it within the last.
Sounds familiar.
So I'm curious to know, a lot of us do have downtime. Is there any secret project that you've had on the shelf the last year or 3 years that you finally got around to refocusing on?
Yeah, definitely. For us, it's email. Emails, like I want to set up an email series. That's kind of been a big trend with a lot of bloggers across all industries lately. We've always had an email newsletter, that we send out once a week or, twice a month or whatever. But it's just been kind of recent updates. Like, here's some stuff from the blog, or, here's what's trending in budget travel or what have you. But I'm in the process of making a much more in-depth and lengthy email series so that when someone is interested in a particular topic, it's almost like we're going to send them a tutorial about how to travel better and cheaper and find better deals and that kind of stuff, whether you're going to Europe or Asia or what have you. It's going to be quite extensive. And it's taking a long time to put together because it's also identified a lot of holes in our content on our website, because ultimately we want to use these emails to kind of push people to the site, right? Because the site is where we kind of, you can do more, like, as far as revenue goes with your site as opposed to emails. So the email should generally be a driver to the website. And so that's kind of what we want to do, is sort of like fill in the holes from a content point of view on our site, and then fill in the holes with our email series, and have it be a whole different type of series, like Dave and Deb were talking about earlier, like where you, segment out your audience for people who are interested in different regions or different types of travel and things like that. So we're working on all that. It's taking a while, because these things do take a while if you want to kind of get it right and have it be effective.
And Brian, just curious, we heard from Deb and Dave, they're using ConvertKit. Who are you suggesting that people use?
All right, here it comes. This is going to be a little complicated for a lot of people, but we actually use a plugin in WordPress called Newsletter. And if you pay, this is sort of my secret advice that I give to my trusted friends, but now apparently I'm giving it to all of you. If you pay like $50 a year, something like that, you can get the pro version of this plugin, which lets you use Amazon's AWS service to send emails super cheap. This plugin has all the same features that most of the major services use, like MailChimp and ConvertKit. You can segment your users. You can make autoresponders. You can make series. It's got graphs and charts and a lot of really good stuff. It can make it so that people sign up. And because it's in WordPress, it integrates with everything on your site, right? And people can sign up through Facebook and things like that, or people can sign up when they submit a comment. It makes it really easy to do those kinds of things. And so I can send an email for like a 1/100th of a cent or something like that. So let's say I have 20,000 emails, 20,000 subscribers that I'm about to send an email to. That would cost about $2 to send that email to all those people. So that money, obviously it's going to be more expensive if you send emails more often. But ConvertKit and MailChimp, if you had that same number of subscribers, you're looking at several $100s a month or so, depending on the service you use. Whereas the newsletter plugin on WordPress, so much cheaper. The downside is that you have to have a little bit of technical knowledge to understand how to set up your account with Amazon to use their email service. It can be a little kind of techie and nerdy for some people. They might look at that and run away. But if you can kind of power through, do a little bit of reading as to how that works at a technical level, then you can save a lot of money. There are other plugins that do the same thing, which also use Amazon's SES service. So if you don't want to use the particular plugin I recommended, there are some others out there as well.
Okay, so that was newsletter for a plugin that.
Yep, it's just called the newsletter plugin. It has the logo is like red, so if that helps.
Okay, and Brian, good luck on working through that email series.
It's been a project, that's for sure.
I can imagine, but this is the time to do those projects today and get ready for the future. Thanks, Brian. Let's bring back Deb and Dave. And this is another question from the audience. It's in regard to social media. We'll just ask this quickly. Any thoughts on TikTok?
Well, we have tried TikTok, and I for us, we're not using it, but I think it is a great platform. And one thing we just say is you just don't spread yourself too thin. We're already on Instagram that we're very entrenched in. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. So the only reason we're just not doing TikTok now is because bringing on another social media. But I do have some ideas that I want to start doing with TikTok in the future. That when I have something that works with it, because I think TikTok is a whole different audience, and I will get to it. That's one of our little projects that we're planning on doing over the summer once we're out of lockdown. So I think TikTok's great. We're just not using it at the moment.
Will that be more singing or dancing, Deb, on TikTok?
That's the thing. Another career before my hair and makeup was I was a singer and dancer, and I've got these ideas about what I want to do with our YouTube channel and TikTok and things. So like when that project happens, that can be our zany Dave and Deb. That's where you can show another personality. It's like we couldn't start doing that on Instagram now, but we could start doing things like that on TikTok.
Okay. Well, why don't you give a shout out so people can get ready when your new videos of dancing and singing come out? So what's your handle on TikTok?
We are The Planet D on TikTok. So we have maybe 5 TikToks on there, and we missed the boat on that one.
But it's coming soon.
Yes, coming soon. I should put that up of us just dancing, jazz hands.
Okay. And guys, again, stating the obvious, this has been such an awful time for the world's economy, for so many people who've got sick and lost their lives, and just the unbelievable inconvenience. But we want to be optimistic. I'm going to ask you to take out your silver crystal ball. Is there a silver lining? So I've heard people speaking about slow travel, local travel, responsible travel, virtual travel, but are you seeing anything good coming from out of this once again things are in a better situation?
Yeah, I do think that people will now spend more time in a destination. I think a lot of before this, a lot of people were about checking off things off of a list, and I need to go here, 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 and here. And I think people, because they'll be restricted on where they are traveling, will be able to spend more time in one destination and explore that even in more detail. So rather than taking just a 1-week trip to go somewhere, and then 1 week at home if you had 2 weeks of vacation, maybe you take 2 weeks in one destination so you don't have to fly somewhere else or anything like that, and explore that destination in more depth. And I think from a tourism standpoint, I think that's even better. We started off with slow travel and taking our time in destinations, and I think that's how you get the most benefit out of travel, and you learn more when you travel, when you spend more time in a particular destination. I think that's one thing that will be a real positive coming out of this.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to bring the heart back into travel. I think that one thing a lot of travel bloggers can agree upon is that the past couple of years have been a lot about running around, taking an Instagram photo with a, pretty picture, and not really delving into the culture or the experiences. And I think that people are going to yearn for that again. I think that we got into it because we just had such a love for travel and learning about new cultures and having new experiences. And I think that is going to bring it back. So that's what I'm thinking is going to come from it.
Okay. So for any media on the call, you've heard it here. Deb is predicting the heart will be coming back into travel. That's a good and hopeful message to share. I'd like to bring back all of my panelists at this point. So if we can add in Brian and Jacob.
We're all together.
Okay, guys. Well, a giant thank you to Sergey and Travelpayouts for hosting this event. A big thank you to Deb and Dave, Jacob and Brian. I really, really appreciate your time and all of your insights. And thank you, audience, for your great questions. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Great.
Everyone.
Thank you so much for coming and discussing such a topic. You know, it's hot today, and like I'm actually writing everything you are saying, and I'm seeing like lots of cool takeaways and actionable insight that can be useful to our publishers. The thing that really struck me was about getting something specific and targeting keys on your SEO for getting higher conversion on your affiliate link. And overall, like that's been a really great content, and I'm really thankful for you for coming. That was awesome, and I hope everyone in our audience enjoyed it too. And I guess many of us will be rewatching it after it's over to write down the insights again and to put them to action. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it. And I would like to say thank you one more time. And please bring back to the screen the contact slide. And again, if you have any questions afterwards, just join our Facebook, our LinkedIn, or Twitter, and write to our email and let us know your questions. And we will probably be ready to help you with that. We'll be 100% ready to help you with that for sure. And yeah, that's been a great event with the great content. And I hope you enjoyed it too. And tune in for the future webinars content that we produce, and I hope it's been helpful to you. And that's it. Thank you. Have a good day.